We've talked a lot of times here in the channel about canceled attractions, projects, and even parks that would have made their way into Disneyland Paris, but unfortunately never got through the gates of Imagineering. One of the major differences from those projects and the one we will explore today is that this one was being planned to be incorporated in the opening day slot of attractions and lands of the EuroDisneyland resort. So sit back, relax, and come along as I explore the cancelled New Orleans projects of EuroDisneyland.
Oh boy!
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Main Street News. If you're new to the channel and enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and liking. You can find me on Twitter or in our Discord. Links are in the description. You can now also support what I do even more by subscribing to a channel membership. Now, let's get on with it. In 1957, all the way in California, there was an area in Disneyland called Holidayland. It was home to playgrounds, horseshoes, baseball field, volleyball, and a lot more activities. Then, in 1961, it closed to make way for a new land that was being planned since the late 1950s.
Disneyland has always had a big river and a Mississippi sternwheeler. It seemed appropriate to create a new attraction at the bend of the river. And so Disneyland's New Orleans Square came into being.
This land was, of course, New Orleans Square, which opened in 1966 and was home to the then new attraction Pirates of the Caribbean, which opened alongside the Blue Bayou restaurant. The theme of the land is quite easy to understand, as it's based on the 19th century New Orleans, a very well-known city in Louisiana. 3 years later, it became the home of another instant classic Disney ride, this time being the Haunted Mansion. One other very important aspect of this land is the food, that can be found in many places from Café Orleans, the Royal Street Veranda, Blue Bayou Restaurant, and 21 Royal. While this is the only New Orleans Square in the world, Tokyo Disneyland does have a similar area within their Adventureland, but this wasn't to be the case in Paris. In the late 1980s, when planning EuroDisneyland, there were a lot of advertisements and information distributed all around Europe, and more specifically, the information building known as Espace EuroDisney. The early promotion booklets showed what guests would be able to find in some years after construction ended, but some of these even showed something that would never find its way into the park. According to this one, guests will be able to find Main Street USA, Discoveryland, Fantasyland, Adventureland, Westernland, that was later changed into Frontierland, and at last, New Orleans Square. To be placed between Westernland and Adventureland, New Orleans Square would feature the sweet sounds of jazz above the raucous background of a Mississippi River landing that will entice visitors to the splendor of old New Orleans, where the influence of French settlers created America's most flamboyant and exciting city. Here, twisting pathways meander into cozy shops filled with unique merchandise, and restaurants and cafes offer fine cuisine. A tranquil port in the heart of the bayou and a stately Gothic mansion promise incomparable fun from bygone days when the pirates plagued the seacoasts of the Spanish Main. From this text, you can see that it's obviously very similar to the New Orleans Square found in Disneyland, featuring the Haunted Mansion, the Pirates of the Caribbean, and a riverboat stop, so guests will be able to enter a riverboat in Frontierland and exit in New Orleans Square. This would obviously change the way the park layout is today. Phantom Manor would not be in Frontierland, and Pirates of the Caribbean would not be in Adventureland. By looking at that map, we can see that Adventureland would have a jungle cruise and that Westernland would have something similar to Tom Sawyer Island, but more intricate with several buildings, a windmill, and I'm sure lots of room to explore. After exploring all the streets and intricate details of New Orleans, and even going on a pirate adventure, you must be quite tired. That's why the New Orleans theme didn't stop there. In this concept art shared by Imagineer Eddie Soto and made by Dan Goose, guests would be able to sleep in a New Orleans-themed hotel. This isn't the first instance of a hotel with this theme, as Walt Disney World has one, Disney's Port Orleans Riverside and French Quarter resorts. But this one would be a lot more intricate and immersive. According to him, what we see is the entrance to the hotel with outdoor dining and cavern swamp boats. At the back, you would have a convention center. There is also going to be an indoor New Orleans street and a showboat docked in front of the hotel. While the hotel was going to be located at the hotel area around Lake Disney, Mr. Soto says that it could have been adapted to fit in another location. But what if it was built on the edge of the park, similarly to the Disneyland Hotel, or even a better comparison, Tokyo Disney Sea's Hotel Miracosta, as that one is an extension of the theme found in the land. Further exploring this concept, if it ended up getting built at the edge of the hotel, this boat could have been either the Mark Twain or the Molly Brown, dropping off people at the New Orleans stop. And these boats that are shown here, a smaller ride, similar to that of the Venetian gondolas, again in Tokyo Disney Sea. The hotel itself would be a high-end resort rivaling the crown jewel Disneyland Hotel. One of the ways this hotel could upgrade the experience of the guests is how it completes the land. The level of immersion is the same as in the park, so this would, in a way, be an expansion of the park itself. With the caverns, the swamp all around you, the lights, I can safely say that this would be the perfect addition to the park. But why should New Orleans be represented in Paris? Well, French influence in New Orleans goes all the way back to 1682, when a French explorer first passed the future site of the city and claimed the entire Mississippi Valley for France. At the end of the century, a French outpost was established there. It was in 1803 that the Louisiana Purchase happened, which saw the entire land become an American state. To this day, a lot of influence is still left in the city. This is very observable in the architecture, cuisine, and the very famous Mardi Gras, the carnival celebration that was brought to the States as a French Catholic tradition by the Lemoyne brothers in the late 17th century. Now, what was that little history lesson for? Pretty much to explain that France and New Orleans share a lot of history, and this would be the perfect addition to the Parisian park. In a way, to show that both Americans and the French actually have a lot in common, if you look hard enough. As usual when looking at these cancelled projects, I like to see and figure out if it could still realistically happen, so let's explore. By taking a look at the old map, we see that the location was to be between Frontierland and Adventureland, so roughly this area here. In terms of what would be replaced, it truly wouldn't be much. In this whole area there is only the Frontierland Theater, the Frontierland train station, the old Critter Coral, which is deserted now, and the Cowboy Cookout restaurant. Now, the original land in Anaheim is quite small and compact, and when compared to the available land in Paris, it would be a whole lot bigger. Also, in terms of attractions, both New Orleans Square's rides have been moved elsewhere in Paris, both Pirates and the Haunted Mansion. So it would be great to bring Tiana's Bayou Adventure, the rethemed Splash Mountain, to this new land. Many shops and restaurants should also be available in the several streets filled with that classic New Orleans architecture. And at last, how could we forget the hotel? Just at the edge of the park, there's this 2.6-hectare plot of land that used to be for the horses that could be found around the resort. A lot of them for the now defunct Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. So I'm sure it could be used for an ultra-immersive hotel experience. This last part was just my wishful thinking, but it's really not that far-fetched, since this side of the park is often overlooked by guests because of the lack of activities, and there was even a splash mountain planned for this site that never made it. So this would completely transform the area, bring a new attraction, a new hotel experience as guests would sleep in the magic, new shops and activities, and much more. All this and the fact that France and New Orleans share so much history together It's like a no-brainer for me. Well, now I ask you, what do you think about the lost New Orleans land? And would you like to see it become a reality in the future? Let me know down below so we can have a chat. And now, as always, thank you for watching and to our patrons for supporting, and that's a wrap.